Hey, welcome into the Badger Connect podcast. I'm your host, Mike Heller. You know, Badger Connect is a great access point for all of the content you're looking for with Wisconsin athletics for the sport that you choose. On our Badger Connect podcast, it's free. With Badger Connect, it's a subscription-based content provider, and you can direct your dollars towards the program that you want it to go towards. However, on this podcast that we do that debuts each Thursday, it's free at badgerconnect.com. And I have a lot of fun with it because I genuinely have great relationships with the people I get to talk to. And in this case, it's the Hall of Famer, Wisconsin Broadcast Hall of Famer, Paul Braun, who joins me. And Paul, we live close to one another, so I appreciate you walking over to do this. And I'm so excited to talk about your journey because it has been remarkable and it continues after it stopped, right? I mean,
yeah, it did.
You're doing
really
Wisconsin
did.
women's hockey now and called the national championship this year. And there was a period in which you weren't calling games. So let's start at the end here. What you just got this last year with Mark Johnson and women's hockey.
Their second consecutive national championship for the Badger women's hockey team. And it was a dream situation. The last 2 years, you wind up doing the broadcast and they win the national title. And the way it all started, Brian Posick was really responsible for getting me the opportunity.
Right. Yeah, because what he wanted is a reunion game, right? To bring you back. How many years did you do Wisconsin hockey on radio or public television?
Almost 50 total. I'm not sure the exact total, but let's say 40 to 50.
Okay. And then we'll get into the storyline, but then you stepped away from it.
Right.
Brian Posick, who we all love. I mean, Brian Posick is a tremendous voice, and it's in great hands and in a great voice with him. But he brought you back to do a reunion game at the Kohl Center for men's hockey.
And Bill Howard and I were at practice one day, and we were upstairs, and we walked by the women's hockey office.
Yeah.
And a couple of people in there hollered at me, and they said, "Hey, Paul, are you prejudiced or what?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, "Why don't you do a game for us?" Yeah. So that's literally how it started. And after we did the game, I went to Jeff Tyler, who was my boss for a lot of years at WIBA. They didn't even have full-time radio coverage for the Badger women's program, which to me, I thought was ridiculous. So he said, "Well, we need somebody to sell it." Yeah. And it got sold.
Got a background.
It got sold.
Yeah.
And we finished up that season, which was the 23 season. And after the year was over, Jeff came to me and he said, "If you will do one more season, we will do a season-long campaign with the Alzheimer's Association," which I'm sure we can talk a little bit about. Yeah. So we did that year. Yeah. And they win the national championship. And then they said, "Well, why don't you come back for one more season?" So I came back this past year, and they had a phenomenal year, as everybody knows. Yeah. The talent, as you know, on that team was unbelievable. They win the national title again. And over the 2.5 years, now I'm not taking any credit for this, but just imagine this, a team, 2.5 years, they won 97 games, lost 6, and tied 4. And won 2 titles. Talk about a dream world for a broadcaster.
And those ladies that went off and won Olympic gold and then came back a month later and won a national championship, and in the fashion in which they did it.
Yes.
I mean, the entertainment value was huge, but their quality of play and hockey comes down to bounces of pucks and certain things. And it's kind of 2 years in a row. And I think great teams get great bounces, and Wisconsin's gotten them 2 years in a row.
Without a question. But you also got to give a lot of credit to the remaining players who were there, minus that talent. Right. And I'll tell you, Lacey Eden put that team on her back. Yeah. And she was absolutely phenomenal. She's the only one, by the way, to go away from Wisconsin with 4 rings. It's just absolutely, it was a great story.
Pretty extraordinary. Let me ask you this question about that transformation, calling a men's game for all those years, right, and then calling a women's game. How did that work for you? What did you notice?
Do you call it like they're shorthanded?
Yeah.
There were certain situations
Sure.
where he had the puck.
Yeah,
All of a
yeah,
sudden,
yeah.
she had the puck.
Right.
And it took me a while to adjust to
Yeah.
that particular thing. Where you wait a minute here, you got to remember this is not the guys.
They're
this
not
is
a man
the gals
down.
and that type of thing. But
Right.
I got it down about
Yeah.
halfway through, maybe that first season. And then I was pretty comfortable with the terminology.
Let's walk it back to kind of the beginnings. You and I have had this. Well, that's why you take notes for things that you might not recall when I ask. However, I want to talk about Minnesota State High School Hockey Championships. Let me begin there because that's one of you and I have had this conversation. It's one of your great career accomplishment joys was calling those games in the state of hockey in Minnesota.
I say this, and when I try to explain this, I say under no circumstances am I trying to knock hockey in Wisconsin at the high school level. There just is no comparison. In Minnesota, they have over 200 teams playing high school hockey. I had the great fortune of stumbling into an opportunity to get involved with WCCO Television, who at that time took over the rights for the play-by-play broadcast of the tournament.
Yeah.
And that was 1983. And I was fortunate enough to be picked to be one of the two announcers. The other one was Dan Kelly of the St. Louis Blues.
Okay. Yeah.
And Budweiser made him back out at the last minute. So they brought in Chris Cuthbert and Don Chevrier from Hockey Night in Canada.
Okay.
And we rotated games. And what people don't understand is, for example, this past March, the tournament in the Twin Cities, it drew 200,000 people for the length of the tournament. That's just absolutely incredible.
Where did they play when you did that?
In St. Paul.
In St. Paul, not at Mariucci. They were still playing at St. Paul,
played at the
home
Big
of the
Red.
North Stars.
And the first year telecast when CCO took over in 1983, there were 106 people involved with the telecast.
Yeah.
They took the entire station crew and put them in different roles. They brought in two of their news reporters from Washington, D.C. They did videos from the time that the team left the ice with the sectional championship to when they stepped onto the ice to play their first game in the Twin Cities. They produced 7 and 8 minute videos on every one of those teams.
Yeah.
They brought in Al Monfort from Hockey Night in Canada as a consultant who was in charge of that broadcast. And I arrived at the hotel.
Where did you live? Where was home?
I was living in Madison at the time.
All right.
And we stayed at the St. Paul Hotel, which was right across the rink. I got into my room, and there were videos piled up on every team in the tournament.
Some research.
A booklet of research about this wide on every team. And I look and I go, ooh.
You got some work in front of you.
Yeah, but this is kind of nice. This is what it was like at that level. And it was absolutely fabulous. And I did it for all of the years that CCO had it. And at that point, it was a one-class tournament. And you had the teams like Roseau in northern Minnesota and Hibbing. They loved coming into the Twin Cities and knocking off those Minneapolis teams like Edina. Edina is the one everybody loved to pick on them. They call them the KK. Yeah, exactly. And then they moved it to a two-team or two-tier tournament. And that really changed it overall.
Why did you call hockey?
Why did I call hockey?
Well, I mean, a lot of broadcasters, it depends on where you grow up sometimes, but was hockey always your first play-by-play experience? Why did hockey become your calling?
Because it was my first play-by-play experience.
Yeah.
And there's a whole story on how I got into broadcasting too. And when I decided to go to broadcasting school, it was Career Academy in San Francisco, because at that point, my folks and I had moved to Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And I heard an ad for this broadcasting school in San Francisco. The sports guy that was doing the instruction was Merle Harmon. Remember that name?
Well, Merle did games with Euchre. He did Brewers games. Yeah. Merle Harmon's Fanfare, the retail store as well.
And so I went to broadcasting school in San Francisco, and the only team in the Bay Area that would let the career students of that school practice broadcasting was the Oakland Seals of the Midwest or the Western Hockey League.
Yeah.
And so we went there and practiced doing our broadcast, and that's where I literally
That's where you got the start.
Yeah. And did you know the revelation of one of those first broadcasts? You can skate faster going forward than you can backwards.
Yeah, right.
I still have that tape, by the way, and I go.
Yeah, it would be true, Paul. That was true.
Hey, Badger fans, Jesse Temple here. If you're the kind of Badger fan who always wants a little more than the final score, that's really what I'm doing at Badger Connect. Each week, I'm sharing stories, interviews, behind-the-scenes insight, and Badger Bites videos to help bring fans a little closer to Wisconsin athletics. It's built for fans who just want more context, more access, more of what's happening around the teams. You can jump in as a starter member for just $10 a month at badgerconnect.com.
So then where did you what's your first start in doing a season of play-by-play? Was it here at the University of Wisconsin?
No. When I finished up the broadcasting career or the school out in Seattle, I looked for a job in Seattle. And if you're trying to get your first radio job, you don't get a job in San Francisco or Seattle.
Right, yeah.
So I came back to where my roots were, which was Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I traveled all over the state looking for my first job, and I couldn't find it. And I basically had my car packed, my little red Volkswagen, and my best friend was...
Wait, hold on. A Volkswagen, a Beetle, like a bug?
Yes, a red one.
Sweet. Did you have a flower in the window?
No.
Okay, all right, just wondering.
And my best friend was attending St. Thomas College, and he was a bartender at the Thunderbird Lodge, which was next to the Met Center in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
The next morning, I was going to get in that red Beetle and drive back to Seattle.
Whew.
I'm sitting there talking to Frank Karp, who was the guy who was the bartender. And a guy comes and sits down next to me. And we start chatting back and forth and talking about things. And we talked for about a half an hour. And he said, what did you want to do? And I said, I thought I wanted to go into broadcasting. Well, you did, right? And he started asking me questions about broadcasting and what I like to do. And he said, well, why don't you go to work for me? And I said, what do you do? And he said, my name is O.B. Borgen. I own radio stations in Preston, Minnesota, and we're building a station in Wisconsin Dells.
Is that right?
And he offered me a job.
It pays to sit at a bar sometimes.
That's right. Only he told me what the Dells was like in the summertime.
Sure.
And I arrived in early January.
That's different.
And I got my first job in the Dells. I worked there for about 2 years. Then I moved to Portage.
Yeah.
And after that year and a half in Portage, I talked a radio station, which at the time was WMAD.
Okay.
Into doing high school games.
Yeah.
And they hired me to sell sports and do high school games. And we did hockey, we did football, and we did basketball.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my start.
Yeah.
And then in 73, when the Badgers won their first national championship, Bob Miller, who worked with Bob Lou, and they worked at radio and television in the UW athletic department in PR, Bob was hired by the LA Kings. Elroy Hirsch got him the job. And Fred Gage, who ran WIBA at the time, said, he called and he said, what are we going to do? We lost Miller. And during that year that I was doing high school games, Bob Johnson came to a couple of them.
Yeah.
I really didn't know him that well. He invited me to be in his class, his hockey class. He was teaching at the UW. I said, I'm not a student. He said, it doesn't matter.
Sit in.
So I sat in at his class. And Bob Johnson said, give that kid over at MAD a chance. And that's legitimately how it happened. So there's situation number 2. That was pretty unique.
And it's also, there's so many unique elements to the road that you've traveled with Wisconsin hockey in broadcast.
Right.
Initially, there was no exclusive rights, as there wasn't in football or basketball.
Right.
You know, multiple stations were calling the same game. So Jack Swanson was also, you know.
Right. So was Chuck Caton.
Oh, there were 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, during that period of time, there were multiple broadcasts for a number of years.
Right.
Jack was on one, but Chuck Caton, who wound up in the National Hockey League, and I believe in the Broadcasting Hall of Fame of the NHL. So there's a lot of guys that had opportunities here.
How does the public, so I'm going to date myself, and this isn't meant to date you as far as age-wise, but I grew up in Appleton watching Wisconsin hockey games and you on Wisconsin Public Television at 10:30 at night on Fridays and Saturdays. And then I ended up calling some of those games full circle later on with Badger football on public television and with Badger hockey on public television when you were doing games and Posick was doing games on the radio. That was such a tremendous gift for hockey fans in the state of Wisconsin to have that. How did that come about?
It came about Jim Santulli, who was the executive producer at WHA. Him and I became close friends, and in the 75-76 year, we met at Altenbach's for lunch.
Another bar.
There's a string of them along the way. And we sat down, and Jimmy was talking, and we started planning the possibility, could we put radio and television together? In those days, that really was not done. Jimmy and I sat there until about 3:30 in the afternoon, and we looked at all the things that would have to be done to make that situation work. And the most critical issue was they didn't carry commercials.
Right.
So how in the world are we going to work it out so the radio could play the commercials and public television could keep going? And we built a situation where we use keywords that only the radio station, the guy back there knew, and we'd use those keywords and we'd stop or pause just for a second or two. We'd then break away for radio commercials. We could hear the radio commercials in our ear, but we kept talking. And then we paused and we came back, and after a while it worked flawlessly. And people, I don't think they noticed. The other issue was the debate about down in the right wing corner of the Badger zone, you're sitting there watching TV. Wait a minute, you don't need to say all that stuff.
Right.
But what we decided is that's the way we're going to do it. And for a while, people may object to it. But I'll tell you what, you mentioned the high school tournament in Minnesota, which was probably my crowning accomplishment as far as play-by-play is concerned. That's number 2 with public TV. We put that together in 1976, and it probably lasted for about 25 years.
Well, the only reason it stopped was the Big Ten Network.
Exactly.
So the Big Ten Network, when they came aboard, they took all broadcast television rights, and nobody got anything. And even in Wisconsin, where it was only tape delayed, they didn't allow it. So Badger football and hockey, which were the 2 primaries. Badger basketball was also there, but I think football and hockey were the ones that were kind of the drivers. They stopped when the Big Ten Network took over. The tape delayed broadcast went away.
You know, Mike, and I still, to this day, get people that tell me about refusing to listen or watch anything and then watch the delay at 10:30. Years ago, it happened a lot. Now it happens occasionally, but I legitimately still get people that walk up to me and say, I was listening and watching those tape delay telecasts.
What are your favorite? Give me one of your favorite Bob Johnson stories, because you're obviously calling some games while Badger Bob is still here, and then the transition to Jeff Sauer. But give me a you already shared one. He invited you into his hockey class.
Right. In terms of his ability to coach, or just as a person?
As a person, because you had a chance to be, as a broadcaster, you're around the players and coaches.
Yeah.
So you have some access and some insights that the rest of us never get. Right.
One that just popped into my mind had nothing to do with strategy or that kind of thing, though I should mention that too. Bob Johnson, I think, was a magician at watching a game on Friday night and then making that adjustment for Saturday night,
Sure,
where the Badgers were much more effective, that kind of thing. He was a genius that way, and he had all these notebooks.
Yeah.
That Mark, I understand, still has. I don't know if he's ever read them, but there's a lot of things in there. But the one that I remember, and Bob had these idiosyncrasies and stuff. We're sitting at an airport one time in the Twin Cities, and Phil Mendel, who was the public address announcer, good evening, hockey fans. We're sitting there having lunch.
Yeah.
And Bob and Phil and I are sitting there, and the waitress delivers the food. Bob looked at Phil's and go, that looks better. So he switched plates on and he started eating. I mean, he's just that kind of a character in a way. But that, for whatever reason, that one still stands out, because we're kind of looking at him and going, what are you doing here? You know?
So you got a chance to work with Bob, and now you called games for the last 2.5 seasons with Mark. What binds them together? What are the similarities that you saw as a broadcaster? You're not in the coach's room, you're not doing that stuff, but what do you believe ties them together?
I think it's the love and the passion that they have for the game and their ability as coaches. Mark, for an example, where he's at, he's the winningest coach ever at the University of Wisconsin. Between Mark and Bob as head coaches, those two have won more than 1,000 hockey games at Wisconsin. Mark loves to coach, and Bob loved to coach. The strategy part of it, they're excellent at their approach and the way they handle players, and that kind of a situation. I think it's simply their ability to relate to people, the knowledge of the game, and the way they conduct themselves. And when you listen to like the gals and they talk about Mark Johnson as a coach, they all basically say the same thing, that he is very straightforward. He's honest. He's low key. He gets his point across, and he's always stressing this. The term he uses is, I want you to play free.
Yeah.
Play free.
Yeah.
He talks about that all the time. To them, that means you got the ability, you know what to do, you know you can get it done. Just go out and play. Have fun.
Yeah. The transition to Jeff Sauer is interesting because he wasn't a Wisconsin guy.
Right.
But I also think, I'm going to guess at something here. I would think of the coaches you work with, he's the one that you were closest to.
Yes.
Because of the time that you spent with him. And I'm going to give just maybe a straightforward hockey part of this conversation. There are no, and I'm not disparaging any other sport, but there are no nicer people, more agreeable people than those in the hockey world. And I mean that. I was working in television when you're calling games and Jeff Sauer is here, and his answer was going to be yes, like open access.
Yes, without a doubt.
You got to do a live shot with you, of course. Yeah, where are we doing at what time? Where do I need to be? You got to be front and center with Jeff for his entire Wisconsin career, and I think he was everything that many of us sort of on the outside looking in thought he was.
He was one of the nicest human beings that I've ever met in my life. I never had a cross word with him. He always followed through. And like you say, if you asked him to do something, he was very supportive of you as a person and that type of thing. And when he was around people, be it fans, media, or he was the same. Jeff Sauer was the same all the time. And just a quality human being.
And I think the players, I got to be very good friends with Rob Andringa and John Bice and Tansel and John Parker, that whole crew, Gary Shuchuk. one of the things that they always said is with Coach Sauer is that he let them play. He gave them a little bit more free reign that you might be able to give in today's world.
Yeah.
He let them be 19 and 20-year-old hockey players that do kind of dumb stuff every now and then, but he let them be them. Yes?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
In fact, there was some internal thinking by the administration that in terms of control of the team, there were certain situations where
maybe it needed to be reined in
just a little bit, because there were players like Tom Sagasor,
sure,
who would just kind of take charge. Coach, don't worry about it. We're going to get this done, type thing.
If you're listening to this show, you're exactly the type of Wisconsin fan that Badger Connect was built for. It simply allows the Wisconsin sports fan to get closer to the program that you loved and directly support the program of your choosing. Your membership goes to the sport that you choose, which benefits the student athlete, and it rewards you for your Badger fandom. Members get exclusive content, great prize giveaways, and behind-the-scenes access that you just simply won't get anywhere else. If you want to be part of the giveaways and the access, pro memberships start at $35 a month, with elite options available for even more access. If you want to support Wisconsin athletics and be part of the programs that you love, you can go to badgerconnect.com and join today.
Well, and that team that won the championship, my years kind of slip on which year that Sags and during in Detroit.
Yeah.
90.
Well, they won in 77, 81, 83, 90, and 2006.
Okay, so the 1990 championship, those are the guys that I got to be friends with. That season was not turning out to be a great season, and they found whatever it was, whether it was a guy like Sags or Robbie or whoever, kind of, because they sort of flipped the switch.
They did.
And then they were great.
Yeah, they did. And I think you summarized it pretty well there and that type of thing. But everybody was happy for Jeff. And, you talk about the coaches of that era. Those guys were friends. There was no better friends than Mike Surdich and Jeff Sauer. Yeah. They used to play tricks on each other all of the time, sending a Speedo back and forth and things like that. And it was very unique. When Surdy coached his last game, I went down after the game to talk to him. Guess who was standing there?
Yeah.
Jeff Sauer.
Yeah.
When Sauer coached his last game, who was in the tunnel?
Yeah.
Down by his office?
Yeah.
That's the kind of relationship you had. And after games, for example, when you were in Duluth, win, lose, or draw, after the game, Jeff, Sammy's Pizza in Duluth. We're going. Sturdy will be there. Yeah. And those coaches got together after the games back in those days. Emil Bissoni. Yeah. The only two that didn't get together were Herb Brooks and Bob Johnson.
Yeah.
Those two wouldn't have pizza together.
Not a lot of people liked Herbie. All right. So I've filled in a few times doing hockey over the years when games could be televised, not on the Big Ten Network, and Brian Posick would step up and do the games on Fox Sports Wisconsin. So I know from experience that hockey teams, players, coaches like to prank broadcasters or somebody who might be new on a trip. So I got my shoe got buttered at Michigan Tech. In Houghton. And Gary Shuchuk was on the staff with Mike Eaves, and he kind of instigated the deal. So Eaves is across the table because I'm sitting at their table on our Thursday night dinner, because you fly up on Thursday, play Friday, Saturday. So they invited me to go to the team dinner. We're at a restaurant, sitting at a big round table, and Eaves is across from me, and he starts telling this elaborate story that is going to end up being a joke. And when it finishes, everybody keeps laughing. Well, it wasn't that funny. And then somebody next to me nudged me and kind of pointed down. I look at my shoes, and they're covered in butter, like pounds of butter that was initiated when Eaves is telling the story. The only reason I bring that up is it was funny, and they didn't replace the shoes. But it was funny. Did they in hockey in all those years? Did any teams ever prank
I feel
you?
left out here.
You didn't get pranked?
I did not get pranked.
They must have liked you a lot more than me.
I honestly
Too much respect for you.
I can't.
They never gotten that. None of those teams ever pulled one over on Paul Braun.
Not that I legitimately that I can remember. I do. I feel left out here.
Well, and that was a shoe chuck thing. You know, Gary.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
So shoe chuck he shoe checked me in that scenario.
I saw some funny things that involved players.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
some of them probably not fit for even a podcast.
No, there was just one when Bob took off to coach the Olympic team, and Bill Rothwell took over the team for coaching. We were in Denver, and Mike Dibble, surprise, surprise. Sure. They were late getting on the bus. Dibble and now I forgot who the other player was, but anyway,
that might cost you a little bit.
Yeah, and they pull up at the airplane hangar in Denver, which is where they were playing games then. Like Bob, Rothwell jumps off the bus and has the team walk in to the rink, which was probably 2-3 blocks.
Yeah.
The door got shut. They told the driver to take off.
Leave them on.
And the players are on the bus going to the rink, and Rothwell is chasing the bus up the road. And they quickly get off the bus.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a prank.
Sure.
But that one.
This is kind of what they do. How many national championships did you call?
I was involved with 5 of the men out of the 6 and the 2 for the women.
So you have rings.
I got a ring last year. And it's the most, you can't even wear it.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally sticks up about an inch and a half above your finger. And it also opens and that kind of thing. But I was honored that they gave me one. I also had one for the 83 years. So I have 2 of them.
Yeah.
The 83 I lost.
Oh.
I lost the ring. And I've thought about trying, I know approximately where it might be, but I've never gone to look at it. See if I can find it or not. But I literally lost it.
So you don't have that?
I do not have it.
Okay. I was going to ask you where your rings are. Well, one of them's lost.
Yes.
Okay.
But the ring from last year for the women is, you talk to the gals and some of them are making it into pendants or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because literally
you couldn't
to put it on your finger,
hand.
you can't wear it.
Yeah. Just for a picture.
And it comes in a very nice case and that kind of thing. I was flattered, honestly.
That's fantastic.
And I'm told I might get another one. And you know what? I told them, don't. Yeah.
Huh?
Don't. Yeah. And I don't know if
you might lose it.
Yeah, that could be. I might.
Let's shift away from hockey for a moment. And I'll come back to it because I want to talk about the WBA Hall of Fame. But let's talk about Alzheimer's. And the reason I bring it up is because obviously it is front and center in your world for the worst possible reasons. And then you have helped to turn the worst scenario into a great scenario from a fundraising standpoint. So those who know you know a bit of the story, but those who might not, talk about Karen and the loss and what you went through, because you go through it. You both go through it. And at the end, it's almost exclusively what you're going through in the Alzheimer's scenario.
And I do not mean this in a negative way to anyone. If you have never experienced Alzheimer's, and I hope you don't, anybody watching or listening to this, I hope you never have to get involved with it. You don't have a clue what it's all about until you go through it. Karen was diagnosed, and eventually it was early onset Alzheimer's. I was told that with that type of Alzheimer's disease, she would probably live 6 to 8 years, and that's pretty much right on what happened. For about 5 years, I tried to take care of her myself, and that was a mistake.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a mistake. And it got to the point where, and I was told something very minor or something very major is going to happen, and you're going to go enough. I can't do this anymore. And about a year before that situation happened, I realized I probably wasn't being fair to my employer and to doing the games because I was so conflicted mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
I was a mess. I wasn't going to practice as much as I was. So I decided to stop the broadcasting, and I've never second guessed that decision. It was the right thing to do. And so I retired and concentrated on taking care of Karen. And when she passed away, there were times throughout that process of going through those years where I have a brother and a sister, and they watched what was happening to me emotionally, mentally, and physically. They were concerned that I may pass away before Karen did.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the career ended, but it's hard to describe, but I am glad I did what I did.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the disease, and then I decided the only way I could fight back was to somehow get involved. And it's really kind of an unusual situation because yourself, Matt LePay, Brian Posick, Aaron Sims, who does the Milwaukee Admirals, Wayne Levering, Jim Paschke, who was here, all of those sportscasters have or had been dealing with the situation.
Craig Kishon, I'll add in Craig as well.
Exactly. And so among us guys, we got together and we had an opportunity to do a fundraising campaign with the women's hockey for literally a 2-year period. And it went through the School of Medicine and the ADRC, which is the Alzheimer's and Dementia Research Center at the hospital. And 100% of the proceeds that we raised went there. But the biggest issue was the educational part that by us providing our stories, it gave people an opportunity to get a little insight into what's really happening with the disease and how destructive and how big of an issue it's going to be if they don't find a cure.
When you lived it, all the rest of us, for me, it was my mom, for Matt, its parents, for Brian, its parents, for Craig, its parents. You lived it 24/7. You talk about being the caregiver. I remember my dad saying to me and to my sisters that mom's never leaving here. I'm going to take, and he did, because she didn't last as long as Karen and but my dad needed to move home. But living it, you have a different perspective than a son or a daughter that comes in but will leave the scenario. And that was a big driver for you because there's a mental health aspect that's at play for you,
big time,
the caregiver. And that's what you were talking about with your brother and sister, saying, I don't know if Paul's going to survive this.
Yeah. And people who knew Karen, she was the most friendly, outgoing, easy to get along with, happy-go-lucky person, and that type of thing. She turned into somebody that was, say, 180 degrees different from that. And there's two situations that even to this day, when I think back on the whole process, obviously a lot of things happened where when you looked at the situation about 4 or 5 years into it, the person that I fell in love with and was my wife, that was not the same person anymore.
Right.
That person was basically gone. And I was advised, like I said, that either something very minor or major will happen where it's going to break you. I was sitting in the recliner in our living room here at the condo at Cherokee where we live, and I was watching a sporting event, and we have a full-length mirror behind our dining room table. And all of a sudden, I hear pounding on the glass. Boom, 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 boom. Get that blankety-blank woman out of our house.
Yeah.
Get that blankety-blank woman out of our house. And it also involved a word that Karen hated that started with an F.
Yeah.
And I went up behind her and I put my arms around her, and she's facing away from me. I tried to calm her down. She turned around, slapped me, and said, "You're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me." And I go, "That's it.
Yeah.
I'm done." But the other one that even struck me a little harder was Karen loved to fish.
Yeah.
And it drove me crazy at the time that she fished throughout her life because all she wanted was a night crawler and a bobber.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But she'd never let the bobber just sit there indicating get a bite. She
Sure.
continuously reel it in. And
Yeah.
after a while, I go, KK, that was her nickname. I just gave up. Let her fish the way she wanted.
Yeah.
About 3 to 4 months before she passed away, my brother lived down in Lake Geneva. We took her fishing and we put her on a dock sitting in a chair and put a pole in her hand. She didn't
Nothing.
have a
Yeah.
clue
Yeah.
what to do with it.
Yeah.
She didn't, no casting, no reeling it in. She just kind of let it dangle in her hands, and all of a sudden she just let it go. She had no idea
Yeah.
what it was.
So the fight to end Alzheimer's is significant in your world, but we're also attached to a university
Right.
that it is important for them, and it is an initiative at the University of Wisconsin. And what a great partnership that has become,
Yeah.
because they're invested. This is
Yeah.
one of their drivers.
Well, and if they don't find a cure or find at least something to really slow it down, the projections are by, I don't know the exact year now, but let's say 2030, 32, 10 million people
Yeah.
conceivably will have Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
If that happens, there's not going to be enough caregivers. There's not
Correct.
going to be enough facilities. There's not going to be enough mental health people or doctors to take care of it in those kind of situations. And the cost is projected to be $1 trillion. And
Yeah.
I've done a few presentations on this, and I was sitting and looking at it, and I thought, what is $1 trillion? I mean, I had no clue.
Yeah.
It's a number that you can't even conceivably comprehend what it really is. So I called my brother, who's good at this. He put it on a spreadsheet, and I called one other guy at the university, pardon me, and I asked him. And within a week, they got back to me, and without paying any interest on the money, you and I could spend $10 million a day, every day, for 257 years.
Yeah.
That's one thing,
Yeah.
one disease, and the cost of, I mean, it's, you don't even, the numbers don't make any sense.
Right.
But the point is, they need to find
It
a
needs
cure,
to
if
move in
possible.
that direction. And
Yeah.
and I appreciate your work at it, turning a tragic situation into a positive, the after elements of it being a positive impact, with what you have done, and Matt LePay has been at the forefront, and some of the rest of us have chipped in and helped out. But I say thank you for your
Appreciate
work
that.
there.
Thank you.
And after that, that's when you get a chance on the Brian invite to step back
Yep.
and do. Can you take us through the emotion of being back behind a microphone, calling a game, and some of the joy that you got from the point of going through what you did with Karen and not being in the broadcast, losing your wife, and then being behind a microphone to call a game again? How awesome that was.
It's really hard to put into words. I feel like I had a second life
Yeah.
opportunity presented to me. And hockey, I guess, was my passion, though I broadcast football, basketball, other sports, and those kind of things. But it gave me a new lease on life.
Yeah.
The last couple of years. And who would not only get that opportunity to do that, but
Yeah.
then turn around and win 2 national
Yeah,
championships?
right.
I mean, it's like a dream world, but it's something that I would have never envisioned, and I'm eternally thankful for, because in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
it probably saved me from living a life that would have been pretty lonely
Yeah.
and not very active, and probably a not a good situation.
A couple of final thoughts, storylines that I wanted to jump into. The Wisconsin Broadcast Association Hall of Fame. You get inducted last year, 2025. I just ask about that situation for you, that honor, which is pointing out what an impact you've had in your career. How amazing is it when I refer to you as a Hall of Famer?
It's hard to get used to.
Yeah.
And when you look at there's a lot of great people in the Wisconsin Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and just to be associated with a lot of those people, and in sportscasters, you look at the list and those kind of things, and you think, wow, enough people thought enough of me and my abilities to put me in that same category. It's truly, it makes you, I look at the career, and sure, there was some ups and downs and those kind of things, but I've been a pretty fortunate person to have lived a life where I brought a lot of enjoyment to hopefully fans, done supposedly a good job, had a great time at it, involved in sports and being around people that are genuinely happy in most cases and that kind of thing. Been to a lot of different places that I would have never visited in the country and all those kind of things. So I look at myself and think, you're a pretty lucky individual.
Well, you are, and we've been lucky to be on the listening end of all of that. Now, finish with this. Shot in a goal is a kind of a simple little phrase. I mean, it is not, but I want to know its origin for you, and when did it become, because I imagine you used it without thinking, well, that's going to be my signature.
That absolutely the truth.
Right.
I just started saying it.
Yeah.
I just started saying it, and it caught on. Seriously, there was no magical formula or thought process of I'm going to use this as my slogan or anything like that. It just, I started using it, and then people started commenting on it. And so it just stayed there.
I'm not trying to bury you, but it might be on your headstone at some point. Shot in a goal.
And I got an opportunity to continue with the women's games. They'd like to have me come back. And, I'm in a strange situation in a way. Unfortunately, we didn't have any kids. Karen's gone. I'm by myself again. I'm not complaining. And I've spent all of my life being active and involved in sports. And we do you and I have done for a number of years, the golf show in the summertime with Steve Stricker and Dennis Tiziani. And if that goes away and hockey, I make the decision on the hockey. I don't know what I'd do with myself if I give them both up.
Yeah, because the golf game's not going to get better.
Oh, it never was any good in the first place. Never.
Well, it's a great little pastime, and it's nice to be able to walk across the street and to do that. And I appreciate you walking across the street, because that's what you did to sit with me on the Badger Connect podcast today. You have a tremendous story. You've accomplished great things. You're helping in your fight to end Alzheimer's. It's a Hall of Fame career. It's a Hall of Fame life. And Paul, we appreciate you sharing time with us.
Thank you for asking me. It's been a good time. I appreciate it.
Badger Connect podcast. We'll do it again next week. I think Brian Butch is on the docket coming up soon. My thanks to Paul Braun, and thank you to you, the listener, the viewer, for watching and listening to the Badger Connect podcast.